Marhaba is hello in Arabic. Welcome to this adult forum today, sponsored by the Holy Land Ministry team. My name is Barbara Jansen, representing the Holy Land Ministry team. We encourage your further participation in joining our team. We have brochures available for you to take home, and you can view our previous speakers on our web page at lordoflife.org, and then just search for the Holy Land and you will find us. So today, we've had many speakers, and today we welcome the Reverend Joan Deming as our speaker. Joan is a retired United Methodist pastor whose career included local church ministry and nonprofit work on behalf of Palestinian Christian organizations in the West Bank and Israel. Since 2009, she has led 16 Living Stones pilgrimages to visit holy sites and hear stories from Palestinian and Israeli peacemakers. During 2024, so this year, Joan traveled twice to the West Bank as a volunteer as part of a protective international presence at the Tent of Nations farm southwest of Bethlehem. It's a farm owned for more than 100 years by a Palestinian Christian family and surrounded by 5 illegal Israeli settlements. Joan will share experiences from the Tent of Nations as well as observations from a June Solidarity Witness Tour of a wider part of the West Bank and Jerusalem. And there will be a Q&A following Joan's talk. Joan, we are grateful for your presence here today and your message. Take it away.
Take it away. Thank you. Let me know if you have trouble hearing me at all. I'll try to use my projection voice. So thank you, Barb, and thank you all for the invitation to be here. Barbara sent me the list of people who have been here before me, and I was a little bit intimidated. It's good company to be in. But I think the last speaker you mentioned was Doreen Awad, and I helped introduce her to Middle East Peace Now because some mutual friends had put us in touch with each other when she came to work in the Minneapolis area a little over a year ago, and she worked for a year, and now she's in Austin, Texas. And doing really well, but a good connection. Anyway, it's wonderful to be here. I fell in love with Palestine, as many of you, I presume, did, either from visiting or from hearing about the stories of people there, and understanding that what we get from our local media is not nearly the whole story, and to understand people there is to find the presence of God and hope in a situation that otherwise seems pretty hopeless. So I do want to mostly talk this morning about the Tent of Nations and my 2 trips there this year. And one of my goals is just to help humanize the situation even a little more for all of us by telling you the story of a particular family on this farm outside of Bethlehem, but probably a subtext to my sharing with you is to invite any of you who might be interested in volunteering to think about doing what I did this year if that appeals to you. So I did go in May, middle of May, for about 3 weeks. 2 weeks were on the farm, and the 3rd week was with a Presbyterian Solidarity Witness delegation, and I'll have a little bit near the end of my presentation about things we saw as part of that. And then I went back in September because having an international presence on the farm has turned out to be the best protection the farm has for the family to be able to keep their land. And I'll share a little bit during the presentation about what the problem is for the family, what the challenge is, and how they're trying to address it. So showing up for Palestine, all right. We haven't figured out how to get my whole picture onto your screen. I think the projection and the computers aren't playing nicely with each other, but I'll have to read for you what the screen says. But on the right, you might recognize this image or the photo. This is the nativity scene in the Christmas Lutheran Church in Bethlehem. And for those of you who traveled to Bethlehem with your trip a few years ago, I think you worshiped in this church. I was there for 2 Sundays in September and I think only 1 Sunday in May. But this nativity was put together by the pastor Munther Isaac, and he calls it Christ in the Rubble. And he says if Christ were to come to our world in this day, he would come into the rubble of Gaza. I'm not talking about Gaza this morning because I haven't been there, and that situation merits more than one full forum all on its own. It's a tragedy beyond words. But what I want to share with you today is more a story of what life is like for Palestinians inside the West Bank. So I paired the picture of Christ in the Rubble with an email that I got from my good friend Usama Nicola in Bethlehem. He works at the WIAM Conflict Transformation Center there. And this summer, sometime, he wrote, "Stop asking people, how are you? Everyone is lying. No one is really fine. The weight of the past year has felt like a century pressing down on our shoulders. The struggle, the loss, and the continuous fight for justice have aged us beyond our years. Every day brings new challenges, yet also a renewed sense of resilience. What we experience in 1 year often feels like the accumulation of a lifetime's worth of hardship, but also strength. This is the reality of living under occupation, where time seems to stretch with the burden of injustice, yet hope persists, however fragile." These will be familiar maps to you, but just as a reminder, the Holy Land is this whole yellowish area, or Israel is the more yellow part. This is about the size of New Jersey. And inside the West Bank here, and over here Gaza, which is 5 miles wide and 25 miles long. Just small areas. And on the right, the West Bank in more detail, and you've probably seen these maps too, but I just want to remind you that the Oslo Accords in 1993 that were agreed to pretty much by the world, including the Palestinians and Israelis, they divided the West Bank into 3 areas, Area A, B, and C. And all of the major cities in the West Bank are Area A. So Bethlehem, East Jerusalem, Jericho, Nablus, Jenin, Hebron, these are Area A. And in those areas, the Palestinian Authority is supposed to have both civil and security control. However, Israel can override the security control anytime it wants to. So the Palestinians have the responsibility, but they don't always have the authority to care for themselves, even in Area A. So the brownish or reddish brown sections are a combination of Area A and Area B. So Area B are the areas surrounding all the major cities. You can see that they're kind of broken up islands. They're not contiguous with each other. And so Mitri Rahab likes to say that the West Bank is now like Swiss cheese, and they got the cheese and we got the holes. In Area B, the Palestinians still provide local government functions like garbage collection, water regulation, maintaining the roads. But all security and military, or all security is covered by Israel. So building permits from Israel are required for any construction, actually anywhere in the whole of the West Bank. But often, 99.5% of the time are denied. But area A. Everything that's white inside the West Bank is Area C. And in Area C, Israel has both civil and military or security control. So the Palestinians have no authority whatsoever in any of Area C. And the farm I'm going to tell you about today is located in Area C. So on this map, Bethlehem is right here. This is Jerusalem. And the farm is right down here, where I have the pointer right now, just southwest of Bethlehem, about 5 miles. I mean, this is really, it's all close together. One more thing, the jagged blue line, that's the wall, that's the security barrier. It's twice as long as the green line is. It's about 70% constructed. It was started in the year 2000, supposedly to keep Israelis safe from Palestinian terrorists. But in fact, a lot of the wall isn't finished, and it's more used as just a population control mechanism. But it interferes with daily life on a daily basis for the Palestinians. This is Usama Nikola on the left. He's the one who wrote that email about stop asking how we are, nobody's fine. Daoud Nassar on the right is the spokesperson for the farm family at the Tent of Nations farm. And these are the 3 siblings who today run the farm. Daher on the left is the oldest, Amal and Daoud. And all 3 of them have been on the farm when I've been there this year. They keep it going. They're our hosts. They take excellent care of us. I'll tell you a little bit more about the background of the farm in just a moment, but this is a stone that greets you as you enter the farm, Tent of Nations, people building bridges, and that's one of their themes as a family, not only to do farming themselves, but to use their farm as an outreach for witness to their Christian faith. And they are members of Bethlehem Christmas Lutheran Church, so they're very strong Lutherans themselves. So these are Lutheran Palestinians we're talking about today. Their farm motto is, "We refuse to be enemies." The farm has been owned by the Nassar family since 1916. It was bought by this generation's grandfather in 1916, so more than 100 years ago. So imagine, I mean, we're in Minnesota, I'm also from Wisconsin. We know 100-year farms and how important those are to families. This is a 100-year farm plus. Bashara Daher Nassar, this is a sign, he's the grandfather who bought the land in 1916. Over the more than 100 years since then, they have registered the land first under the Ottomans, then under the British, then under the Jordanians, and now they've been trying since 1967 to register the land as private land owned by their family under the Israelis. And because they're in Area C, Israel has the right to grant the authorization for them to have their land recognized, but Israel hasn't granted it yet. We're now 33 years into a process of, well, even more than that, but 50 years. Since 1991, Israel has been claiming the farmland as Israel private state land and has been trying to take it from the family. So a lot of what I'll be talking about today is their effort to continue as the owners and farmers of the land in a place where they're threatened on a regular basis with Israel taking over their land. The pillar in this cave on the right shows the pictures of the generations of leaders, and it's hard to read, they're faded by now. But this cave is where the family lived for the first generation and a half. It's a one-room cave, and there's an opening at the top for smoke to go out, but they probably did most of their cooking outside. They would put mats down on the floor to sleep, and there was room for the whole family, 7 children and the parents, and they were, there was no room for walking between people when they were sleeping, but this was the family cave. This is Daher talking to a group. Daoud describes why they want outsiders to come to visit or to volunteer. He says, we don't need outsiders who come and tell us what to do. We need friends who come and join us in our struggle and vision. They help us keep the hope alive. And he also says our land is like our mother. We care for her, we won't sell her, we will never leave her alone. Israel has been, as I said, trying to take the land since 1993. The family has an unusual situation compared to many other families struggling to keep their land, or many of the families who have had their land taken away through the Israeli settlement process. But this family not only has continuously lived on the land, but they have all of the documentation, the papers from the purchase of the land in 1916, and all the registrations and the assessments that confirm the borders of the farm, all of that. So it's very unusual that they have this documentation, and it's one way they've been able to keep the legal process of defending their farm going ever since 1991. Their situation is not unique. It's replicated all over the Area C of the West Bank. But as I said, they're a bit symbolic that if they can hold the land, it will help others hold their land too. And they also are located in an area where several Palestinian villages would be vulnerable to Israeli takeover if this particular plot of land is taken. The family likes to say that there are 3 typical reactions to the Israeli efforts to take land. One of them is a violent response, to fight back using violence against Israelis or others. The second is to go into depression and just acquiesce. You just, woe is me, we can't do anything about it. And the third one is those who have the resources often leave. And so there's been a lot of emigration out of Palestine. But the Nasirs believe that there's a 4th way. And that way is the way of active, nonviolent resistance, refusing to be enemies, and helping the other discover the common humanity among all of them. So this is a drawing that shows the farm, and Daher's vineyard is the farm itself. So it's 100 acres, broken into 2 plots, but it's on a hilltop, and every other hilltop in the area has a settlement on it. So these are settlements of Eliezer, Nevi Daniel, Ephratz, and over here, Beitar Elite. This is also surrounding, Gush Etzion is one of the biggest ones. This is also surrounding Palestinian villages. So Nahalin is a Palestinian village, so is Hosan, so is El Khader, and they are all vulnerable in case the farm would be taken. Our volunteer group went to answer a call to be present as part of an international witness to the farm family being there, and our belief in their right to be there. but also to help out with the farm work. And it's actually really important to have international volunteers as well as visitors come to the farm. We were in a 30-year-old Land Rover going out here. It's just amazing how they put sustainability to practice in every possible way. But this was a group of 4 of us that traveled together in May. And in order to get there, I just wanted to show you one of the consequences of October 7th is that from Bethlehem, right here, it used to be really easy to get to the farm. It took about 15 minutes. You would leave from Bethlehem, drive down Route 60, which is a 4-lane highway, very fine highway, all the way to the entrance to the road that goes to the farm. Right here is Neve Daniel. And on October 7th, Neve Daniel said, no more. Nobody is allowed to get to the farm past us. And so if you go there, you'll be arrested. So in order to get to the farm now, you start from Bethlehem, and I drew this red line to kind of follow the road you have to take. You go through El Khader village, wind underneath the freeway coming from Jerusalem, through the village of Hosan, and often there are flying checkpoints that just show up randomly in Hosan, which means that you get stopped, often for hours, before being able to pass through. But you have to drive through Hosan and then along another road, a small road, to the village of Nahalin, and then you go up a hillside to get to the top. So this way takes about 45 minutes if you get through Hosan. One of the realities is that on the road that Palestinians can use, this road, you pass under a settlers only road that's a very fine highway. So this shows just one of the circumstances that they have to live with every day. When you get to the farm, this is the entrance gate. Newcomers are always welcome, but the gate is also important for security. So anytime people aren't coming in or out, it's locked, and it's double locked. One of the volunteers who was there just before I was there this fall described entering this gate as entering paradise. That once you enter the farm, you're into such a peaceful and beautiful place that it's possible to almost forget some of what is going on around, except for the fact that every time you go through any door or fence, you have to stop and open the gate, go through, and lock it again behind you in order to keep the security strong. When you do go into the farm, this is the first building that we'll come to. There aren't very many buildings. They were all built 30, 40, 50 years ago, and they're not allowed to build anything more. There are I believe about 27 demolition orders on the buildings and structures on the farm. So at any moment, Israel has the right to come and knock this down. But this building holds a bedroom, an office room, and 2 small kitchens, one used by the volunteers and one used by the family. And I keep hitting the wrong button, I'm sorry. This area right here is where people are served lunch, so the volunteers eat. This was the group of volunteers that were there in May. There was a Christ at the Checkpoints conference right around the time that I was there, and a lot of the people who came to that conference, which was partly sponsored by Christmas Lutheran Church, they came either before or after the conference and volunteered at the farm. So we had a really good turnout, about 15 of us there then. And I'm just going to show you some of the things that we did. And the reason our doing this is important is it's not safe for Palestinians to be hired to come work on the farm. They could be arrested. They could be taken into custody on the way to the farm or on the way home from the farm, living in nearby villages. So a lot of the farm labor has to be done by people who come from elsewhere. And so we were part of that. So these two people were painting. The gentleman on the left is 92 years old. In the spring, the weeds had grown high from over the winter, the rains, and weeds are dangerous for fire hazard. And so it was really important to get those cut down from around the areas, especially where the olive trees and grapevines grow. So this on the left shows what it looked like before we did some cutting, and this was my victory, claiming about a 5-foot circle around this olive tree so that they could bring the tractor in and then cut down the rest. But we had to protect the trunks of the trees by getting at least that area around them cleaned out. These are some other people building and cementing a new wall around a justice pole. You can see how close the settlements are. This is Neve Daniel right in the background. It's maybe a quarter mile away. Another thing we did was
a justice pole.
Have you seen peace poles where they on 4 sides they say they have messages of peace in usually 4 different languages? They're going to put justice sayings on the 4 sides of that pole. And one of the reasons that Daoud wants this to be where it is it is visible from the settlement. And so when people are there, perhaps worshiping, perhaps having a presentation or just a chance for conversation at the end of a day around this pole, it's apparent to the settlers that people are on the farm. And that is protection. They don't want the international situation that might arise if an international group has trouble while they're here. So it's important to be seen and yet not to engage with the settlers. I was fertilizing these trees. This is a baby tree that was planted in the spring on the left, and in my time there in September, I was digging around them with a pickaxe and then putting fertilizer down so that it would be ready for the rains that will come hopefully any day now. And on the right, those are carob tree seedlings. So they're trying to also carry forward native trees that haven't been protected in the area as much as some other things. This is back to spring, and that's a rosemary plant. And so those 2 young volunteers were cutting rosemary in order to dry it. And in fact, I have some of it with me that I brought back in September because it's ready now. It was ready for sale, and they gave me some as a gift. These folks are loading brush onto the back of a trailer. That's Daher on the left and a volunteer. Feeding the animals twice a day is important, and volunteers do that as well. So these are ducks, but they also have chickens. They have roosters who have no idea what time of day it is, and they go off at all times of day and night. Pigeons, bunnies, doves, that's pretty, kittens, lots of kittens. Cleaning, just being part of the cleaning crew is also part of what's needed. And so the guy on the left is just doing the ordinary task of wiping down the food service area and the tables before a meal. The folks on the right are doing a much less fun job of emptying the compost toilets. So that was an adventure. Part of what I got to do this fall was to use my pruners to trim suckers off of mature olive trees. And these are the same tree before and after I took my clippers to it, and I think I was a bit conservative about what I left. I'm sure somebody came back and took even more off after I did, but yeah, that was, it felt so good in the midst of the situation we knew was all around us to just be able to work on the trees. Olive harvest has been traditionally a time when volunteers are very much needed. And in the past week, they've had about 15 volunteers on the farm for completing the olive harvest, which is done now for this year. They got everything picked, and they got the olives successfully transported into Bethlehem to the olive press, and so their olive oil is safe supply is safe for the coming year, and that was really good news. Unfortunately, they can't guarantee that any of that's going to be true, so they're always kind of proactively trying to see what might go wrong so that we can address it. Dawn and dusk, every day, volunteers walk the perimeter of the farm just to see if it's all right, to make sure that it's that the fencing hasn't been cut, that there aren't signs of new incursions onto the farm. So this is the view toward a settlement. This is a settlement over here on the top of this hill. But this is what the terracing of the land around the farm looks like. The farm is 1,000 meters high. It's even a little higher than Jerusalem. So it's a wonderful place, but way up there. This is what I had to walk on to. It's newly plowed, but it's very rocky and kind of loose soil. These are olive trees right here, almost ready to be picked. But walking the perimeter is very important. Another thing that people look for, although they haven't been found for a while, but occasionally some of those demolition orders have been left as pieces of paper somewhere along the perimeter. And when a new demolition order arrives, they have 45 days to respond to it. And if they respond, they can postpone the demolition for a while. But if they don't respond, the bulldozers will be there in 45 days. The daily rhythm of volunteering on the farm includes work. The folks on the left were riding a tractor somewhere to do something. This is my friend Jess taking a siesta after lunch. And this was a group of young seminarians from Union Seminary in New York who were playing soccer on top of one of the cisterns. The caves provide spaces for worship. This is the worship cave on the left, and a meeting cave on the right. And also living spaces I mentioned with the family cave when I showed you that one before. But today they have some buildings that are these metal constructions that are where volunteers sleep. So they're kind of dorm style. It's, you have to know that you're getting into roughing it when you go there. But the beds are comfortable, and it was good to have these. They still call these tents, even though they're buildings now. The only electricity on the farm is provided by solar panels because they're not allowed to be hooked up to the grid. All of the settlements around them are hooked up, of course, to the grid. But their electricity all comes from these solar panels on the roof of one building. The water is caught in cisterns from rain, and so a good rainy season is essential for the next whole farming season. So this group is standing on that same cistern that the kids were playing soccer on a slide or two ago. And then the water is pumped out of the cisterns as it's needed and stored in these water tanks. And then out of the tanks, we release it into buckets and carry it in jerry cans to the trees to literally hand water the trees that need watering. They need to be watered for the first 2 years, and then they're successful on their own. Another way that water is really conserved there is by saving gray water. So they have purchased for the volunteers and for caring for things like bedding and, anything that needs washing on the farm. This is a semi-automatic clothes washer, so you have to manually take the clothes out of the washing section and put them into the spinner. And the spinner is on the right, and then it spins them amazingly close to dry, but then you have to hang them on the line. So the water from this all goes into this old bathtub. And then the bathtub is what we use for cleaning of almost anything that needed to be cleaned. The compost toilet, I spared you the sight of the inside of one of them, but these 4 compost toilets are what people are asked to use. There are a few flush toilets that get flushed with the gray water from the washing machine, but they ask us to use these. It's actually not nearly as bad as your grandparents' outhouse was. They're much more pleasant. They have little bins in each one of oak leaves, and oak leaves are really small. Their oak trees are quite different from ours, but that you pour a cup of oak leaves in on top when you've finished using the compost toilet, and they're not bad. Emptying them was nasty, but so why is volunteer present? I've already addressed this a bit, but incursions by settlers do happen. One of the reasons I went in the spring and went again in the fall was that we learned, or the farm family learned through direct experience, that the only way they probably are staying safe is by having others around them. The family would not be safe being by themselves on the farm if not for international friends with them. Daoud and a volunteer from Europe were working in a field near one of the settlements on the Neve Daniel side of the farm one day in March of this year. And a settler with an automatic weapon, probably provided by our State Department, dressed in a military uniform, but he was a settler, came across their fence and pointed his gun at them and demanded their IDs and asked them why they were there. And Daoud said, "This is my family's land." And, he gave them the story I told you about owning it for 100 years. And he said, "No, this isn't your land. God gave us this land. This is mine." And he held them at gunpoint for 3 hours. And finally, only after 3 hours, gave them back their IDs and let them continue with their day. But he promised to be back. And hearing that, the Friends of Tent of Nations kind of mobilized to start recruiting volunteers to go regularly. And when I heard that story, that was when I decided to go. So this is one of the This is one of the areas we cleaned in the spring. You can see how very close it is to the settlement. This is a yeshiva, an ultra-conservative religious day school. And the ultra-Orthodox who go there are firmly believing that God gave this land to them and that it's their responsibility to take it back. And so they just try to make life hard for the farm family at this point. They're not doing worse than that, thank goodness. But one of the things that probably this was Israel itself rather than settlers, but this load of garbage and rocks and dirt was dumped across the road from Nahalin up to the farm, and it's just past the entrance to the farm. So you can still get to the farm from Nahalin, but you can't go any further. this is there. And there are 3 dumps like this on the way to the road that goes out to the really nice highway at Highway 60 that we used to be able to use to get to the farm. This is Neve Danielle, and the part that I showed you is actually off here, the school and the oldest part of the settlement. This is a little bit newer part of the settlement, and all of this construction has been done since October 7th. So they've used this as that as an excuse to really ramp up settlement building all over the country. And this is just one of thousands of examples of places where that's happened. This slag heap is from this construction that isn't supposed to be there. And over here, there's an outlet for a drain pipe from the settlement, and it regularly disgorges brown water down so they're sending their sewage down into the valley. This is on the other side of the farm. Nahalim village is the closest Palestinian village, and this is Beitar elite settlement. Now, I don't know what you think of when you hear settlement, but I think I kind of was thinking of, maybe a few hundred houses or something. 30,000 people in Neve Danielle, 65,000 people in this, and they're on to their 2nd generation of people living here. So as Daoud likes to say, these people aren't going anywhere. We have to figure out how to live with each other.
Are these both Palestinian settlements?
No, this is, oh, I'm sorry. This is entirely Israeli. All of it's Israeli. And over the years that I've been going to the farm since 2012, and I've seen this grow. It used to be kind of, just this part right up here. Now there's only a rugged valley ditch in between that and this one is a Palestinian village.
Is that on the grid?
No, the village is.
Really?
The village is, yeah. I think the village probably is technically Area B, but the farm is Area C.
So where's the farm in this picture?
The farm is behind me.
Oh, behind.
Yeah. This is some of the fencing, and I thought this showed a cut in the fence, but it doesn't. Part of my job in walking the perimeter every day was to look at a couple of places where the fence has in fact been cut, and just make sure that they didn't get any bigger. But this is looking at the border. There's a new road that the settlers put down in March of this year. This road didn't used to be there, and this land doesn't belong to them. It's not part of the settlement. It belongs to another Palestinian farmer, but they've scared him away from using it.
Can you define settler again?
Settlers are Israeli Jews who believe that God gave them the land, and that's the ultra-conservative Israeli Jewish settlers. There's also another kind of settler, and they're probably a mix of the 2 kinds in these settlements. The second kind are economic settlers, because there are massive tax and subsidy advantages to buying or renting a place in a settlement compared to inside Israel. Housing is hard to get and really expensive anywhere in Israel. But you can go into a settlement and have housing provided almost gratis. So I need to speed myself up a little bit. Along that road that was cut alongside the border of the farm by Neve Danielle, they brought this caravan, they call it. It's an RV, and just left it there. And it was kind of a party van for a number of nights early in the summer. On my second trip there, I didn't see anybody at it during the whole time I was there, but I just heard this week that a few days ago, some settlers were here and they tried to initiate conversation with volunteers on the farm. These are some of the people I just took pictures because I could. You know, I was this close to them and they were right outside. They used to drive up and down the road with a red light flashing on top of their vehicle just to make sure that we knew that they knew that we were there. In June, they came and spread a bunch of gravel and the front loader to even it out. And it looks for all the world like they're planning to plant a new settlement here. And one of the laws in Israel says that no Israeli settlers or Israeli living situation can be within 50 meters of Palestinians. And this is like 20 meters from the volunteer section. So it's very possible that if they put housing here and put settlers in it, that then they'll say that the farm family has to leave because they'll be within the 50-meter range of their farm.
Yeah.
By the time I was there was they call this a container. It's like a metal storage unit that was also put there. It's labeled medical supplies, but I never saw any activity on it, and it's just there. You know, this showed up the night after a hearing with the military court about their efforts to re-register the land. And the other one came in coordination with a different hearing. So the settlers are paying attention to the efforts of the family to register the land. This was sunset from the farm, very beautiful place. And this, I was foolish enough to think I was going to, the top of a hillside in Palestine where I would get some dark sky experience. Not so. There was actually, sorry, I'm not good with this. Right down here is the other Palestinian village, and it's very muted. The trees are in the way for this picture. But this was just ablaze with light every night, and often with noise as well. These are some signs of the occupation that are everywhere. Almost every Palestinian home has multiple water tanks on its roof, because even in the places that are hooked up to water, the water supply, it's turned off most of the time. And 2, 3, 4 times a month, it'll be turned on for a day. And they have to fill their water tanks during that day, or they don't have water until the next time it's turned on. So these are solar hot water heaters in front of that, so they also do get their water
Is it
that
the
way.
Israelis that turn off the water?
It's the Israeli water company that controls it, yes. Yeah. And this sign in one of the bathrooms on the farm, we kindly ask our guests to use the compost toilet to save water. You can use the sink to wash your hands. And if you turn that tap on, you're gonna get just a few drips. Yeah. Checkpoints, settler-only bypass roads, again, the Palestinian road that people have to take. This is fairly typical of established areas where Palestinians need to pass from one area that's Palestinian into an area that's Israeli. This particular one is in Hebron. These are images of the wall, the separation wall. This is in Bethlehem. This one is outside of Bethlehem, actually not too far from the farm. And these yellow gates are often installed in a way that they can be opened or closed at the whim of the Israelis. And if they're closed, there's not necessarily anyone around and you can't go through. Although magically, if you did try to go around them or over them on foot, you'd be arrested quite quickly. This is in Jerusalem, East Jerusalem. It's another version of the wall on the right. I joined this Presbyterian group I was with, had a tour of East Jerusalem, and it included seeing this part of East Jerusalem, Silwan. This is the Shufat refugee camp, and inside, especially in East Jerusalem, but many places in the West Bank, The borders of the areas that Palestinians are allowed to live in have been sealed by Israel, and they keep pushing them a little closer in and closer in. So the only way they can expand, your son gets married and wants to have a place of his own, and the only way they can go is up. So the buildings are just going up, up, up. There is a Palestinian community on the left with all the water tanks on the roof. This is a settlement on the right. You'll notice that there's grass. They have water to water grass with. They have trees and flowers growing. And this is a water park inside that settlement. And I was coming straight off the farm in that drippy tap. I was so appalled when I saw this. I just could hardly believe it. And you'll notice it's surrounded by desert. So none of this is normal for the area that it's in. We went into an encampment of Armenians in the old city of Jerusalem, where Israel is also trying to take land that has been owned by the Armenian church for 200 years. We just saw this out a bus window. On the left, I don't know if you can see, there are men down here kneeling with their hands zip tied behind their backs, facing the wall. And Israeli soldiers just watching over them. Who knows why they're there? Probably just for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. This is a shop that's located underneath a church in Nablus, and twice in September once in June and once in July, it was broken into and pretty much destroyed. These peacemakers all pleaded for us to be telling their story because their voices aren't getting out. On the left, Father Justinus, from a Greek Orthodox priest from the Jacob's Well Church in Nablus. In the middle, the priest from Anglican Church or Episcopal Church in Nablus as well. And on the right, the Lutheran bishop, retired bishop, Bishop Munid Yunan, all asking us to plead their story with our government because they aren't being listened to. And so this is my closing. We came and we saw, and now it's up to us to go and tell. So love shows up for those who are suffering. And I thank you for, I didn't leave a whole lot of time for questions, but we have a few minutes if you'd like to.
Who's legally representing?
They have a Palestinian attorney who practices in Jerusalem, so he has legal rights to practice in Israel, and the case is in Israeli military court, because the military court governs everything that happens in the West Bank for Palestinians. So their lawyer is a Palestinian, but he practices in Israel.
So the motions that they carry in the court, are they following title registrations? And
Yes.
showing deed?
Yeah, and basically Israel has used up all of its objections. I mean, they've all failed.
So now they're going after this border of 50 meters or whatever it is.
Yeah, it seems like that's one way. Yeah, Israel likes to create facts on the ground. They call them facts on the ground. And while the legal process is still kind of in limbo, if the settlers come in and do something that then goes against Israeli law, then they have a whole new reason to eject the family, because they haven't been able to eject them so far over ownership rights.
So the land that was next to them that now has this road,
Yeah.
what was done legally with that other individual that
Nothing.
they just confiscated as
Nothing. The farmer was confronted at gunpoint by settlers and told that if he ever came back, they would kill him, and he hasn't come back.
What is the implications of someone coming onto your property with a gun?
Well, we know what it would be here,
Yeah.
but there it's nothing.
So the individual farm on land that's next to you, what are the implications of that individual doing that type of act?
99.99% of those cases won't get prosecuted at all. And then 99% of the 100th that do get prosecuted will be found innocent. I mean, the legal system is rigged on behalf of the Israeli Jews.
So these individuals with the guns that are dressed in this army fatigues or what have you, are they part of the military or are they ex-military? Do they know?
They might be reserves. They might be reserves. They might be in their own uniforms. It's not possible to tell, but they're dressing up a lot in a lot of places as military. The settlers are. I mean, there are pogroms going on in villages around the West Bank that are much worse than anything that's happening to the farm. And going in, burning cars. I think just a couple days ago, 60 cars were burned in one village north of Ramallah, and houses, either vandalized or sometimes bulldozers. The bulldozers are made in Illinois, by the way. And the guns. I mean, our government sent 5,000, basically M16s to settlers on October 8th. So, being here it's just, I don't know, humbling is not even close to the right word. It's mortifying to see what our tax dollars are doing.
Are there other farms that are being protected by national presence, or is this the agreement?
Not very many, and there's certainly nothing, I don't know of another one. So I can't really say that there aren't, but I don't know of any more. This one is certainly the largest. I mean, 100 acres on a hilltop. These surrounding settlements are part of a block of settlements that it's part of Israel's master program for settling Jerusalem in a way that will guarantee that Jerusalem will always be Israeli Jewish. And so they want this whole area to be solidly settlement. And it just, in a way, it's miraculous that the farm is still there. I have to say, our State Department has sent representatives to the farm. They're aware of the situation. They've been talking with Israel, but not exerting any pressure that would make a difference yet. But at least they're aware. They seem somewhat sympathetic. And the best way we've known to kind of shore that up is to talk to our legislators and ask them to be in touch with the State Department to pressure Israel to grant the registration for the farm. If the farm receives acknowledgement of the family's ownership, they would get rights to water, they would get rights to electricity. The villages that are kind of between them and the Green Line would all be protected by their presence. So it is really important. I have to say that our Minnesota legislators have been at least somewhat receptive. Ilhan Omar is great, and Betty McCollum is great. We've been to, I went to Churches for Middle East Peace meeting in DC in April and met with Amy Klobuchar's and Tina Smith's staff. And both of them have at least spoken out for a ceasefire, which is like the most basic step that needs to happen for peace overall in the region. But apparently there was enough outcry from local people seeking Amy Klobuchar's pressure on the State Department that her staff developed a form letter that they sent back to people who contacted them after the last hearing was put off yet again. And people then would send us, as Friends of 10 of Nations, they would send us copies of the letters they got. And it was just amazing to me that it was important enough that they had to create a form letter to respond. So I did want to mention in closing, and I see that we're at time, I have a QR code that any of you could use to sign up for the newsletter for the Friends of 10 of Nations newsletter, which is put out only about 4 times a year. But anytime there's a hearing or new news about what's happening on the farm, we also send to our email list. And so there's one of these up here, I can just put it here on the table, and there's another one on the back table. And if you'd like to, you can just click the QR code. If you're not into QR codes, go to friendsoftenofnations.org. It's FOTONNA, Votana, Friends of 10 of Nations North America.org. And under contact us, there's a way there to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here.